We shot in May 2011, and so even though the story's based on New Year's Eve, because obviously it gets very hot out there, and so in that regard we had to be very, very mindful of obviously the temperature, obviously with the gear, but we also had to ensure that we had, I suppose, a small kit, because everything was on the Canon 5D and a Steadicam. Nothing was on sticks, so the camera was always moving. And like, I mean, in terms of like audio and all the other additives, I mean, that we could have used anything, so it wasn't, I suppose, as important. The camera choice was probably more important because I wanted the film to kind of look like a Wrangler ad. I wanted it to look dusty, and I wanted the colours to kind of come across nearly like it was a 70s kind of Ozploitation kind of film. You know, it's got this little bit of, you know, how do I put it? It's probably got this little bit of Mad Max about it, but at the same time, you can tell that other influences include Razorback and you know, start talking about Blair Witch and Wolf Creek and all these other films. So the choice of camera was probably the only real important thing. But in terms of kind of modifications and things we had to do, we had to get 33 people out there for 11 days and you know, obviously a number of four-wheel drives, and we had to modify the F350 truck to fit 4 people, including the cameraman in there. And Paul Denham, my co-producer, and I, who's also the cinematographer, the DOP, he and I both played the 4th character, Dylan. He played the body and the eyes and was actually the cameraman of Dylan, and I was the voice. And so 2 of us played the 4th character because we couldn't seat 5 in the front. And so I spent most of my time in the Pilliga in the sleeper cab behind their seat with a monitor and a script as they were driving around. So in some regards it's also kind of like an Aussie Ozploitation version of the movie Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx, because you know, 75% of what transpires is in this F350 truck. And every time you think there's a chance of getting out of the truck, the Pilliga and certain characters find a way of pulling them back in. Brendan Byrne, the main actor who plays Jay, he and I organised for him to go out into the Pilliga with a group of pig chasers for a week, so he could kind of get up with the lingo and get a bit of a feel for it all. But specifically speaking, yeah, time is one thing, but you know, giving these people specific tasks and assignments. I try to also be fairly inclusive and approachable with what I do. Like I'm not like Oliver Stone and kind of wield a big bad stick. I've always, you know, tried to take the approach that, all right, well, we're all in this together and it's their film as much as it is mine. And if I've got to be assertive, yeah, of course I've got to be assertive, but I want them to feel like it is a collaborative effort. And that's the approach I've always tried to take with a lot of things that I do, because you can't have the Harvey Keitel Reservoir Dogs approach where, you know, you want to be the epicenter of the universe for everything. Like, I mean, the famous story there was he wanted to play all of the characters, and Tarantino eventually said, no, mate, you've just got to pick one, and then that's it. And you're not getting the best lines from all the other guys. You're picking one and that's it, and that's how it's going to be, because otherwise this isn't going to work. And so, yeah, I suppose you've got to know when to bark and know when to bite and know when to shut up as well. So, but I don't pretend to know it all, and I've still got lots to learn, and fortunately they're all still talking to me. Weather, it was a big thing out there. We were at the mercy of the elements. Like, I mean, it wasn't meant to rain at that time of year. Poured rain the first 2 days. We lost some time, had to kind of, we basically had to be cleaners for the day following that to fix up the camp, because we'd obviously had torrential rain. So obviously that was one, but the other drama that you have as well is that, potential drama, is that you're dealing with people and personalities, and you're having to manage those personalities, and some you're compatible with and they're easy to manage, others are much more difficult. And that in itself, particularly when you don't know people that well, it can be hard because No one wants to stand down, people don't want to listen. But that said, I was pretty blessed with a really good cast and crew. They're predominantly the biggest challenges. The other challenge, of course, out that way is, as well as that, it really is a throwback to a bygone era. Like, there's no reception, there's no Facebook, there's no phones. You're relying on radios, and even then, if you get too far out of range, you can't talk to one another and communicate. So when you're kind of out in a place like that where there's very little signage, a lot of people don't know where they're going, very, very dangerous, because you take a wrong turn, go to the wrong spot, drive through a hillbilly town, or get bogged, or or you go missing, and it can take a whole day to find someone. So they're probably the biggest challenges for sure, I'd say. The film cost and the budget itself was $84,000. If I'm fair dinkum, I would say that with a few people's key efforts over the last decade, it comes closer to $1 million. Look, I mean, if I'd been getting paid average Aussie wage of 30 grand a year for the last 10 years, there's $300,000 alone. And I know that I've done more than a part-time job on it, because it's been a labour of love. So officially $84,000, unofficially it's nearly $1 million, but with independent undertakings, you're prepared to wear certain things on the chin, because you know that if the boat floats at the end, it's great. If it has some success, that's great. If your name gets out there, that's great. And that often outweighs whatever you could have gotten back financially anyway. So yeah, we had about 8 investors, and yeah, like I said, not too bad. It enabled us to do all the things that we needed to do, and I'd managed to kind of really cut it down to the bone. But as a first film, I called in a lot of favours, which is what you've got to do. A lot of people did a lot of things for next to nothing, and in some cases nothing, just to kind of help this vision become a reality. Getting the film sold is certainly not an easy task. In a previous life, I used to be a sales manager with Sydney Morning Herald in Fairfax, so I've got an idea about sales, but I hadn't sold a film before. And so essentially, since when I started this in Christmas 2005 through to now, it's basically been like a film school course minus the fees. And I knew that it would get to a stage where I either had to get someone else involved to help me sell this film, or I was going to have to just do it myself. Anyway, got to the point where here about 18 months, 2 years ago, I started sending out screener links and rough cuts of the film. And it got to the stage where about midway through last year, I'd had 5 offers for the film, which was pretty exciting, unexpected too, because you never know. Like, sometimes think, oh gee, what if no one likes it and I'm going to have to go and do something else and the film dream is over. But I was pretty excited by it. Like, I was mindful also that it was really hard sell because it doesn't have any named actors in it, and traditionally found footage films don't. So it makes it harder still. And so, plus there was an influx of Bigfoot films, plus it was found footage. So there's a lot of boxes in some regards that red crosses were being marked rather than green ticks, if you know what I mean. And so I was just persistent, and I directly targeted those distributors that I knew would at least be receptive to me contacting them. There's no point contacting some that are only interested in rom-coms. They're not interested in found footage horror films, and I think that's where a lot of people make mistakes and waste time, is that they think that everyone wants to look at what they've done. Well, no, there are certain distributors out there who, for argument's sake, are only interested in horror and thriller and that type of stuff. So I made the list and I went through it, and then said, okay, I'm going over to the American film market in November in LA, and I'm going to make sure though that when I go over there, I'm not meeting any of these guys cold. I'll have already done the yards with them, and so I'm going over there to close it. And like I said, had a few offers, but there was a standout. Firstly, in Australia, Monster Pictures was the standout for Australia and New Zealand, and they took on the DVD, VOD, Blu-ray, all the associated rights other than theatrical for Australia and New Zealand. I wanted to retain theatrical in Australia because even though there was an opportunity to go down that path, I wanted to do a bit of a digital new age Albie Mengle thing with the film and take it to remote towns and pubs and clubs, particularly around the Pilliga, and show them the film there. So that's why I selected 26 locations across Australia, many predominantly up that way, where I knew I'd get 100 or 200 people in a club who'd pay to come and watch an outback horror film. Ideally I would have loved to have been able to have, drive in on the back of a ute or something and done that, but I didn't get around to doing that. But I kept that side of things myself, and I thought, well, at least that way, if it doesn't work out with any of the distributors, at least we've controlled some of the flow of finance and revenue, and at least we've gone some way towards getting some money back for the investors. But the worldwide rights were accrued by Black Wolf Media, Origin Releasing. They've got offices in LA and Vegas, and I'd been talking to those guys for a little while, and they're relatively new players on the market, and saw the film and absolutely loved it. They believed it was one of the most Australian films that they'd seen, and was scary enough to kind of pique people's interest, but tame enough to kind of get that MA 15 plus rating that I was looking for. And they thought it was an easy sell, and so much so that they're slating it as one of their main releases around Halloween, which is a big thing. So particularly when you consider who we're going to be against at that time of the year as well. So in that regard, as I said, it was all about emails and phone calls, and sometimes tears of joy, sometimes tears that weren't joyful, but just a real hard slog, and not taking no for an answer, because that's what I want to do. And if this is what you want to do, then nothing else matters. And I know it sounds kind of really selfish and really single-minded, but there's an old saying that I was told here numerous times growing up, but it was kind of reiterated to me here not long ago, that people's opinions don't pay your bills, and they don't. And I'm happy to listen to anyone and everyone and accept everything, but inevitably it's me that's kind of got to execute it. And a lot of people who have been involved in this process, some at the start are no longer involved, some have come on just recently, but there's been a few of us that have been consistently there, and they're the ones obviously that are genuinely interested in following it through to the finish line. I try not to get disheartened or disappointed about people or things or setbacks, because you've got to expect it, and you've really got to be thick-skinned. It's like chasing pretty girls. If it doesn't work after a while, you either change your pickup line or change the bar. And for me, I had to do it numerous times, and but I got to where I wanted to get to. So I don't know how far it's going to go or where it's going to succeed or not, but I've put myself at least in with a chance, which is all you can ask. The importance of marketing a film, look, I don't pretend to be Tom Hopkins, but I can say that obviously with anything it's important to kind of push and promote what you're doing and create as much awareness as you can. Look, if I'd released this film 15 years ago, let's just say 6 months before Blair Witch, it may have fired greater than that film. It might have flopped. I don't know. Timing can be something as well. A part of me was a bit disheartened because there are numerous other Bigfoot films at the moment, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh, really? But another part of me says, well, hang on. People are talking about them though. It's kind of, like 4 years ago it was zombie films, 10 years ago it was vampire films. In 5 years' time, who knows what it might be. So I thought, okay, well, at least it's in the public lexicon, they're talking about it. So I thought, well, I need to kind of use that to my advantage. And so a few of us, I suppose kind of helped and cross-promoted and did a few things as well. And got some good advice from people like Eduardo Sanchez, who did exist in Blair Witch. And so I was kind of really determined to find many unique ways to really push the film that others hadn't done before. And so one of them, for argument's sake, is for people to turn up to some of my screenings at these remote locations. Lucky door prizes include being featured extras in the sequel. So little things like that. And okay, that started getting people talking, oh, hang on, he's making a sequel, hang on, I might have a chance of being in it. So there were little 1%ers like that. Other things as well, and as I could go on and on and on, but because I have the media background as well, I made sure that I gave it a complete media coverage, from the Nemoi Valley Independent newspaper in Gunnedah that my dad used to own, through to local radio stations, through to local TV, web, horror sites, pigging magazines and online sites, trucking mags, chick magazines, all that kind of stuff. I needed to saturate it as much as I could because the film has many selling points. Some people might watch it because they like F-350s and really cool trucks and the outback, and other people might look at it because it's got some hot looking country chicks in it. Other people might watch it because it's a horror film and it's got monsters in it. So everyone has a different reason. Some people watch it obviously because they know me or someone attached to it, and so I had to utilise all of those things to market the film. Perfect example, a few people involved in the film come from the Blue Mountains. So in the Blue Mountains Gazette newspaper, a few profiles on a couple of these people. And so mixed it up as best as I could. You can always do more, but I don't think we did too badly. Still more to do though, hence why I'm here.